Namaste. I've talked about wisdom. Wisdom is of the heart. Wisdom is when you understand. A very interesting thing is that there is as many nerve cells in the heart as there are in the brain. The heart has a different kind of intelligence, a different kind of knowing. A very interesting thing has happened in recent years. Somebody who had a heart transplant, they didn't want her to know who the donor was. It was somebody who had died, and they gave this woman that boy's heart. They didn't want to say who it was, though. And she did a great deal of research because she was very anxious to know why, after getting that heart, she found all sorts of new desires. She'd never liked chicken. Now suddenly she liked chicken. She'd never cared to smoke. Suddenly she wanted smoking. And again, aspects of her consciousness were invading her central consciousness with desires and thoughts that were not normally her own. So she found finally that it was the heart of a young man of 18, boy, whichever you want to call him, and that he had all those desires. So we must understand that the heart itself has something. It's not just an organ for pumping blood, but there is a spiritual heart in the anahat, which is the deeper aspect of that. And it's only when we can lift that energy from the heart to the point between the eyebrows that we can really understand things clearly. I've mentioned earlier about a time when I was very new on the path, just a few months, and I fell into a sudden and very deep mood. And I didn't know how to get out of it. I tried reasoning about it. Well, reason follows feeling. When you have a strong feeling, reason will give you all the justification for that feeling that you want. And so, as I tried to reason my way out of it, I found that I wasn't getting anywhere. And therefore, I asked my thoughts, do you like being in this state? And they said, no, we don't. Well, would you like to get out of it? Yes, we would. Well, what should we do? We should change our state of consciousness. So I sat down to meditate. And I put my mind very strongly here. And it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam that when you feel your heart as a lotus and direct the petals upward toward the brain. And so I tried to direct everything up to this point from the heart and everywhere. 5 minutes is all it took. After 5 minutes, my center of consciousness was changed. My attitude and understanding was changed. Suddenly I understood, well, of course there was no need for that mood, and things were perfectly right the way they should have been. Thoughts are universally, not individually rooted. And whatever thought you have depends on the level of consciousness that you are on. If you have gross thoughts, it's Satan and God are on two sides. It's as if God were on this side, your right side, Satan were on your left side, and you're right in the middle. And if you give your thoughts more toward God, He will influence you. And if you give your thoughts more toward Satan, he will influence you. Maya has magnetism of its own. And it's very important to understand this and to avoid those things which will create that magnetism, that vortex, that vritti, that will draw you downward. And so in that upward move, I raised my consciousness to a higher level, and then the thoughts that came in were from that higher level. It's very helpful to understand that you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts pass through you. You are not they. You are not your feelings. They pass through you too, always depending on the level of consciousness. What makes you particular? The gift of free will. And what is that free will? I went to the Bhikkhु Samhita, which was written thousands of years ago, and it told me that I was born in Romania and that my mother, that I had two brothers but no living sister was possible. It told me my name. It told me my pre-sannyas name. It told me my guru's name. It told me of good things in my future and bad things also. And how would somebody know that Because we don't have the freedom we think we have. We think that we would like to take this path instead of this path to town. We think that we've made a free decision. It's not free. It's been determined by something in your subconscious. Maybe that came out to make you want to go left. It's just, you just can't tell. There's only one freedom that we really have, and that is the power to reject God or to seek Him. That much you have. And that free will must be offered to God. You have the free will to bring your mind up here. We can say that God may have known years ago, or from the beginning of eternity, that you would make that decision. But again, there's something of this is the degree of free will that we have, that you are always free to seek, and you will always be impelled, I should say, also, to seek bliss, because that is your nature. Our nature is Satchidananda. And if you want to find fulfillment, you will discover that everybody in the world, yourself included, is seeking bliss. Everybody in the world wants to avoid pain and to find happiness. And happiness is our substitute definition of bliss. Even the worst criminal in the world wants to find happiness. And he thinks happiness will come from revenge or money or killing or whatever it might be. But it's just his ignorance. Sooner or later, there is no sin. Sooner or later, we all have to come out of that swamp of ignorance that makes us go in the wrong direction and understand that our destiny and our highest interest is to go in the right direction toward bliss. And so our free will always be, there will always be that aspect within our consciousness which longs for bliss and will do that which will give us bliss. Some modern writers have said there are no moral values, it's all a matter of opinion. There are moral values, and they don't depend on conditions, tradition, or convention. Always, the reason it is good, for example, to give, as Jesus Christ said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Why? Because you feel more blessings. When you give, your consciousness expands. And as it expands beyond the ego into the understanding that your real self is a much larger thing than this ego. And so everybody in the world is trying to get rid of that which imprisons the ego. Pain imprisons the ego. It makes you think of me, my body, and so on. And bliss helps you to become completely free. Satchidananda is that which comes when the ego has surrendered itself into the infinite. You know, it's much easier to talk about these things now than even in the days of the Gita, when the battle of Kurukshetra was being fought. Because until modern times, and they knew this anciently, in fact, if you look at a dip, you will see that there's a decline in consciousness in history, coming down to 500 AD, then arising from 500 AD to our present level of understanding. But nowadays, it has been discovered by science that matter has no reality of its own. What about Isaac Newton's statement that matter cannot be destroyed, created or destroyed? Well, the answer is it isn't created, but you see that it doesn't actually exist as matter. It is really only a manifestation, formed manifestation of energy. But everything in the universe is actually made of energy. And this energy is in you and in me, and there's no difference between you and me. It's only as I've put this before, the flames of gas on a gas stove. The flames with light on them, you can change the color of the flames by putting different chemical powders onto it, but those colors and those individual flames are really only manifestations of the gas underneath. And so the life which manifests in you and in your ego, and the life which manifests in my ego, is different only from an outward view. You seem different from me, but you're not. It's the one spirit who dreamed both of us. And underneath our separate reality is that one reality, which is spirit. We need to get rid of that separation. And the more we do so, to get rid of your ego, you need to open yourself to that inflow of divine grace. In the last analysis, everything is grace. But that does not mean that therefore you can sit back and say, well, God, give me your blessings. As my Guru said, God's blessings are there already. The Guru's blessings are there already. It's your blessings that are lacking. You have to make the effort too. My Guru said that the spiritual path is 25% your effort, 25% the Guru's effort on your behalf, 50% the grace of God. But without your effort, you won't be able to reach him. You have to raise your hands so that he can reach down and pull you up. So the teaching that we must get rid of our ego is based, first of all, on chitta. I want to be this ego. I like being this ego. I like thinking of myself as separate from you. I don't feel when I'm feeding you that I'm feeding myself, and therefore I'd rather take that food for myself. It will help you to get rid of this separate ego that you have, to feel that the more you give of yourself, the more you're giving to yourself. When you share money, for example, people think of wealth as good karma. Well, it may be good karma, it may be bad karma. It depends on the use you make of it. Remember, conditions in this world are always neutral. They're neither good nor bad. It depends on what you make of them, what you do with them. So if you have wealth and use it only to build a great mansion, have lots of servants and so on, that will be feeding your ego. It will be for your own destruction. If, on the other hand, you think, I have this wealth, I can help so many people, and give the wealth away, not foolishly, not irresponsibly, but to real need, you will find in that case that you are always sustained. So think in terms of giving of yourself, whether it be wisdom, whether it be wealth, whether it be energy, whatever it is. One thing that people are most afraid of, it's listed as one of the greatest fears that people have, is public speaking. Well, I've had to speak in public all my life, but I have to say, all of my adult life, I should explain, but I have to say that, I've never been nervous, and you might answer, well, of course, with practice you lose that nervousness. That's not the secret. The secret is that I don't think about myself. I don't think, what are other people thinking of me? I'm thinking of sharing with them what I feel is worthwhile to me. And so in teaching, I don't think of their reaction. I think of my own giving. And everything that you do, think in terms of what you're giving to other people. Think expansively. The other side of that is humility. But humility does not mean self-abasement. It doesn't mean bowing to the ground all the time and throwing dust on your own head. People who do that think only of the ground and their head and of dust. It's forgetting yourself. True humility means feeling that he is doing it through me. I'm not really taking the responsibility for it. And of course, the difficulty is that you do have to give complete, conscientious perfection to every work that you do. And you can think of it this way. It's not ego that makes you seek perfection. You should think of it in terms of, do I want to offer an imperfect gift to God? Make it as good as you possibly can. Offer your talents, your abilities, offer them to him. He can use intelligent people much better than stupid people. So try to develop your talents, but always offer them up to God. Let him do it through you. So anyway, as you offer yourself that way, it's good to tell yourself again and again, I'm not doing this. And the positive side of humility is self-forgetfulness. Now, if you are with other people and they flatter you, well, just don't take it to yourself. Don't say, oh, well, nice. Just say, he's the doer. And another important aspect of that is that if people say that you have done something beautiful or that you're wearing something beautiful and so on, it's not enough to say, well, first of all, you shouldn't say that he is the doer in this. That's okay to do that. But don't impugn their good taste. Don't say, oh, this old rag. There was a woman in college when I was in college who came to a party with a mink coat, which was very expensive, and she threw it on the floor, and somebody said, but that's very expensive. Oh, that old rag. Well, she was actually impugning the taste of the other people. Don't impugn their taste. Don't knock it. Understand that they too deserve that respect. So give respect to everybody. Don't put anybody down. Everybody, you don't have to do it to feed their ego. Always give that respect to the God in them. The more you can, when people slight you or insult you, don't feel you were insulted. Feel he's the doer, and actually thank them. Say, thank you for putting me down because I am trying to get out of this ego. Don't defend yourself. Again and again you will find opportunities every day to tell yourself, I don't matter. And if people don't like me or don't respect me or whatever, it's their problem, not mine. I won't worry about it. This idea of fighting duels to protect your honor, well, what honor is that? That's your ego. I like the story of the American who was challenged in France by a Frenchman to a duel, and the American selected for weapons apple pie at 10 paces. Well, I would say, laugh at life, laugh at the problems, laugh at yourself. You'll find freedom that way. Joy to you.